Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's the top of the hour, so let's begin this month's ACT training webinar. It's March 2025, and this month we're going to talk about synchronization, best practices for setting up remote synchronization with ACT, whether you're on desktop or you're in cloud. A few housekeeping items before we begin. This session is being recorded. So if you have other people at your company that you want to share this recording with, this webinar with, or if you want to watch it again later, we're going to send an email out to you that contains the link to watch this recording later on. Also, at any time, you can go to act.com/explore, and you can view this recording and any of the previous 29, I think this is our 30th one. You can view any of the previous webinars that we've done and watch those on demand by going to act.com/explore. You can follow along with me if you want. A lot of the stuff I'm doing today is going to be, I'm going to skip a few steps because I'm going to be doing some installations and initial synchronizations, and those steps may take a little extra time. So I'm going to try and skip those so that you don't have to sit here and watch a loading bar. But certainly use these videos later on, use these recordings later on to follow along when you want to do this at your own pace. Also, there's a survey that you're going to receive after this webinar is over, probably. If you're selected, we just ask you to fill out the survey. Let us know what you liked about it, what you think we can do better, and if you have ideas for any other webinars that you'd like to see in the future, shoot those ideas over to us. We take them, we read them all, and we try to make as many of those happen as possible. Today, my name is Brent Milner. My name is always Brent Milner, but today I have with me Joe Greenspan. He's going to cover some of the higher points of ACT Premium Cloud and ACT Premium Desktop. I've also got Ed and Dan. They're our experts in the UK, and they're going to help answer some questions in the Q&A panel. So if you have questions, just go to your Zoom toolbar there and find the Q&A panel and ask your questions there. That's the only thing we're monitoring today. So let's get started. And by that, I mean, let's turn it over to Joe. And Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about remote desktop synchronization?
All right, great. Thanks, Brendan. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you with us today for another one of our monthly webinars. We certainly appreciate you making the time for this in your busy day and hope you continue to find value in the various topics that we bring you each month. So people often ask what's the best thing about ACT or what makes it different or better than the others. And the first answer to this question sincerely is always our customers. ACT has been around for over 30 years, which is not something that many software companies can claim. And we are very fortunate to have such a loyal and passionate customer base. The second answer I give, and tying back to today's topic, is deployment flexibility, meaning your ability to manage and to use the software how and where it works best for your unique business. So you may prefer to install the software on your own hardware, you may prefer a pure cloud experience, or you may prefer a hybrid of the two with our cloud to desktop sync option. You may prefer to work offline at times, online at other times, etc. The bottom line is our goal is to say to you, yes, you can do that when it comes to software deployment and access. So with each of these choices, though, comes some best practices in how to configure, how to protect, optimize your system so your data is always available, always up to date, and always accessible. And Brent's going to share with you many of those best practices today. So without further ado, Brent, take it away.
Thanks, Joe. So we're going to start in the desktop environment. As Joe said, ACT has been around for over 30 years, and it began, of course, as a desktop application. The way this synchronization feature came into being was have a lot of employees who are out on the road, out making sales calls, out doing on-site inspections, doing support, whatever it might be that would take someone out of the office and onto the road, and yet they would still need to have access to ACT, be able to create records, edit records, modify things, and then have that synchronized or have that um, also edit the database back in the home office. And so uh, this is when synchronization was created. And what this allows you to do then is to take your laptop offline and then make any edits to the database that you need to. And then when you're back in the office or when you can reconnect to your home office, you would sync those changes back into the mothership, as it were, the main database that's back home. So we're going to begin with desktop now. If you're a cloud user, don't jump off the call just yet because I have some stuff for you also here on this in this session. But we're going to start with desktop, and I'm going to show you the process that you need to do in order to enable this synchronization piece. And I have the bullets on the left here. So it requires installing a service that will synchronize with your database. Then you may need to assign user permissions to the user or users who will be doing this remote synchronization. Then you need to enable synchronization on the main database and then create the sorts of data that you want your employees to synchronize. And then we'll set up a remote database for that employee and go through the steps on their computer to show how this all ties together at the end. So first of all, let's talk about synchronization. Now, when you're synchronizing to your ACT main database, ACT does not have to be open. That's what this sync service is meant to do, which we're going to install here shortly. That is a service that's always running and it's always connected to the database itself. So you don't have to have ACT open on the main database. You just have to have that machine, of course, turned on and running and connected to the internet or the intranet at your office. And then you have to have this sync service also running at all times. So I'm going to walk you through that now. Now, as I go into ACT, what you'll do is on your computer, minimize everything here, you're going to have in your root drive, if you've installed ACT, you'll have inside this root drive, the C drive, you will probably have a folder that says ACT in it. Inside that folder is going to be a little setup window here. And when you click this setup, usually you have to run this as an administrator. When you click setup, it's going to open up a little menu for you. And what you're going to do is click ACT or install ACT synchronization services. So let's click that. And then it'll ask you, which one do you want to install? Do you want to install ACT network synchronization or ACT internet synchronization? Now, you have to decide which one works best for you. So if you are going to come into the office and perform your synchronizations inside the office, inside your intranet, then you'll probably want to do this network synchronization service. If you have a VPN into your office environment, you'll use this network synchronization because you won't have to do any port forwarding or anything. It'll connect directly to your ACT database, which is inside your firewall, inside your office intranet. If you are thinking you're going to be synchronizing from maybe your home network to the office or a hotel network to your office, anywhere that's outside your intranet, then you'll want to choose ACT Internet Synchronization Service, where you may need to then enable some port forwarding on the router within your office so that you can make this connection into your ACT database. So that's the reason there are two types of synchronization here. One is basically inside your office environment, inside your office intranet, and the other is outside that. So once you choose the one you want, you're just going to click to install that, and it'll start to unpack this installation wizard. Now I've already installed it on my computer, so that's why it's asking me if I want to repair it or remove it. The installation is very straightforward. Just run through the steps there. Usually you just want to take all the default settings. And again, remember, you're installing this on the main database, on the computer where your main database is housed. That's where the service should be running, on the same machine that your database is running. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of this, and I'm going to just jump into it to show you what it looks like. Once it's installed, what you'll need to do is set up a user who will be able to do this synchronization. But if you go to your Start menu and you search for ACT or Sync or anything like that, you'll find this ACT network or Internet sync service. When you click that, it will launch in the lower left corner in your taskbar. You'll see a little icon that has two arrows, and it'll tell you whether that service is running or not. You can right-click these two arrows and choose Show Hide to see the sync panel. Um, the first time you access this, this panel will be empty. So what you'll need to do is add a database. The way to do this is just to click Add. It will try to find where your databases are saved on your computer, and you'll just want to choose the pad file, which is the pointer file that points to your database. You'll choose that file which points to your main database. If you only have one database, you'll only see one pad file here. If you have several databases, you need to choose which database or databases you want to synchronize to, or you want to remote sync into. So I've already chosen my database. It's going to be actually, I'll do a new database so you can see this process as it goes through. So I'm going to click my new CloudWalker database, click Open, and it says that adding or removing a database requires a sync service to be restarted to function properly. So yeah, let's restart the service now. What that's going to do is it's going to start it, stop it, it's going to start it again, and then it adds this second database to my list. So now I have two databases that I can sync into. This is a one-time setup. Once you've set these databases up in here, you never have to do it again. And if this button says Start Sync Service, that just means that the service is currently stopped. Another way you can double check this, again, is by hovering over this little ACT Sync icon in your taskbar, and it'll tell you whether it's running or not. So if it's not running, click the button to start it. And that's all you have to do. Once you're done with that, you can click Exit. This won't exit the program. You'll get a little window that tells you that. This isn't closing your application. It's just removing it from your desktop here, and it's always running in the background. So if I close it here, I can hover over here just to verify that the sync service is still running. Okay, so now that we have sync service running, we have it tied to our database. Now I just need to set up one of my users to be able to synchronize into this database. And the first thing we should do, this is probably where one of the most common errors happens, is we need to enable permissions for a user to synchronize into the database. So as I'm logged in as an admin, what I'm going to do is go to my Tools menu and choose Manage Users. And then from here, I need to decide which user I want to synchronize in. I'm just going to start with Al Blackwell. I'll click his name. I'll edit his user information. And then from here, I'm going to go to the Add Permissions area. Now, it may be by default that remote administration is here. If not, you'll need to move this permission setting from the left column to the right column. That's the permission that user needs in order to be able to synchronize with the database. So since I already have that done, there's nothing else I need to do for this user. This user is ready or has the permissions to be able to synchronize. So I'm going to click Finish here and close. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is enable synchronization on this database. So since I've only just added this database to the sync service, now I need to enable it, allow synchronizations to be triggered from my users into this database. And we're going to do the majority of our work here in the Tools menu. And in the Tools menu, there is a submenu called Synchronize Database. And what we'll do is on this submenu, we're going to choose the Synchronization panel. Now this will open up the Synchronization panel where we can walk through a number of steps. And the really neat thing about this is you really just start at the top and you work your way down, and then you're good to go. So you can't do anything until you enable synchronization. So you have to start by clicking that link. And it gives you a little warning that says synchronizing will be enabled. Are you sure you want to do this? And when you click yes, it's going to now enable this database to be synchronized. It takes about 15 to 20 seconds for this to happen. And once it's finished, you'll see that additional links become uh, activated on this little synchronization screen. Now this is enabling synchronization on this entire database. So now it is enabled, which means any users who have the access to synchronize to this database can do so. And I'm going to show you how to set this up for each user. So I'm going to begin by managing a sync set. Now what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to determine which records that Al should be able to synchronize. You probably don't want everybody to synchronize everything because those synchronization processes will take a long time, especially if you have thousands and thousands of records. One thing you can do is manage a sync set and choose which records you want each user to synchronize. So usually here what you'll do is you'll create a new sync set record. I've already done that. So I'm going to just view the one that I already created. So I'll edit this. I named my sync set Al Blackwell sync set. And then on the next screen is where you need to choose the users who are going to be synchronizing with this sync set. So of course, I chose Al. When I originally came to this screen, this right column was empty. So all I have to do is choose this selected users radio button and then find Al and move him from the left column over to the right column so that Al will be the one using this sync set that I'm about to create. The next thing we need to do is choose which records, or what types of records, or how many records we want to synchronize. By default, it's going to say synchronize all available contacts. I have over 500 contacts in this database. You probably have thousands, right? So what the whole point of this is to really create a filter of sorts so that we're only synchronizing the absolute minimum number of records that Al needs to access. He doesn't need to access records that other salespeople own. He doesn't need to access anything but the records that he is in charge of. So we're going to define the criteria for that now. So I'll choose the second option and click Next. And then this is where we're going to create a rule. So I'm going to delete this rule and show you how I created it. This is basically, and you've seen this screen before probably, it's an advanced query type window. But what I want to do is create a rule here that says Al should only be synchronizing the records that he owns. So I'm going to, in the contact dropdown here, I'm looking for contact records, and I'm going to scroll down and look for the field called Record Manager. I'll choose that, and I want to make sure that he's only accessing records where the Record Manager is equal to Al Blackwell. Put his name in there, and I'll click Add to List. And then you can always double check this if you want by clicking Preview, just to make sure that your logic is working. And when I click Preview, it's showing me these are records that are managed by Al Blackwell. And even down at the bottom, it tells me, okay, there's 42 records. So that's a lot better than 550. That means the synchronization will run a lot quicker, and Al won't have to be sitting there waiting for his synchronizations to take a long time. So I'm ready to go. I'm going to click OK. I have my rule here set where the record manager is equal to Al Blackwell. So I'm going to click Next. And now I'm going to click Finish to create this sync set. And now I have a sync set ready that I can use for Al when he's synchronizing. The next step here is to click Home. And now we've created our sync set. So the last thing we need to do here is create a remote database. So I'm going to click that. And now we can set up some settings, some guidelines, some rules on how this synchronization will take place for Al. I only need to create one database. So most of the time, you're just going to leave this set as one. I'm going to have Al remote into ACT, my ACT database from his own remote database. So creating one remote database. Now I just need to give it a name. You can call it whatever you want. It has to be a unique name that's not shared by any other database in your system. You can't use spaces or special characters. So all the same rules apply to naming a database. So I might call it Al Blackwell Sync, or you could call it Al remote, whatever you want to call it, just so that you know this is the remote database. And then I usually use the default location of where this thing is going to be created. Wherever all your databases are stored on your main server, you're going to want to use the same location there as well. So I'll click Next, and now this is where we select our sync set. So that's why we created that sync set ahead of time, is because we want this remote database to follow the rules of the Al Blackwell sync set, so that he's only adding records that he owns into his remote database, and those are the only ones he can synchronize back to the main database. So I'll click Next again, and then we need to set up some additional options here for synchronizing. So first of all, do you want to synchronize supplemental files? So this is things like um, any dashboards or layouts. If Al has a special layout that he's created for himself, any saved queries, any reports that he likes to use, any templates that he's using, any of those things that appear in a supplemental files directory, you're going to want to synchronize those too. Most of the time, you'll check this box so that Al will continue to have access to those supplemental files. Then we got to talk about attachments. Do you want to synchronize attachments? If you have a lot of really big files that you're attaching to contacts, again, that's going to make your synchronization take a little bit longer. So you have to decide if that's important to you or not. And then finally, you can choose to set a duration of days, which it will then give a reminder to Al or whoever your employee is to synchronize. So how often do you want him to synchronize, or when do you want him to get that little nag message that says, hey, you haven't synchronized in X days, please synchronize now. So maybe 30 days is too many. Maybe you want to make it like 2 days or something like that. You want to really make sure that they're synchronizing often. You'll set that here. Then when we click Next, you have to choose the type of synchronization that you're using. Since I set mine up as network sync, I'm going to choose the network synchronization. And then all these other settings get filled in for you automatically. If you chose internet synchronization, you'll have to include the URL where your database is, and then follow that with a /act internet sync. So just follow the instructions there, and you should be good to go. Click Next again, and now we're all set. So when I click Next, it's going to create this remote database. Now, this is the step I'm going to skip because this takes about 5 minutes to complete. What it's doing here is it's actually creating an ACT database, and it's populating that database according to your sync set. So it's going to populate my database with all records that Al owns. Then it has to basically package that database up. It's creating a kind of a backup of it. It's creating a special file. It's called an RDB file, a remote database file. It's packaging that up so I can give that file to Al. I put it on his computer, which he will then open to make sure that his remote database is now on his local instance of ACT. So I've already done that ahead of time, and we're going to go look at that now. So I'm going to close this screen, and I'm actually going to exit out of ACT completely. So now we're going to pretend that we're on Al's computer. We've created that remote database file. It's called Al Remote DB. If I had extensions turned on here, you would see that it is an RDB file, remote database file. This is the file I would need to copy off of the main computer and give it to Al. Either put it on a thumb drive or put it on a shared network drive, anywhere where he can see this. And what he'll do is probably just copy it to his desktop. That's probably the easiest way to go. Now, of course, Al has to have ACT installed on his laptop or whatever machine he's going to be using to remote into the main database. Once Al has ACT installed and you've given him this remote database file, all he needs to do is double click that file, and it's going to launch ACT. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, you've got a remote database here. What I want to do is now unpack this database so that you can use it and so that you can synchronize back into the main database. And so that's what this screen is saying to us. Unpack and restore a remote database. Usually you don't have to change any of the settings here unless you have changed where your where you want your databases to be on your computer. I always keep these as the defaults. And when you click OK, Act will start to work to basically restore this remote database onto the computer. Once that's done, this is what Al will log into when he's on the road. When he's not connected to his main database, it will connect to this one. And so now Act says, okay, we've completed this restore. What should we do with that original RDB file? Well, you don't need it anymore. Now that you've done the restore, that file is kind of useless. You can't use it again. So let's just remove the file. We'll click yes, and Act will clean up your desktop for you. So now Al needs to log in to this remote database. I have the most unsecure sign in for him as possible. Oop, I need to make sure I have the correct name for him. Let's see. Maybe I did change his username. I may not remember his password. We'll find out here. If not, I have another user that I did this with earlier, so we'll find out. Oh, all right, let me use my other user. I forgot his password. That's kind of embarrassing. I did this. I created a remote database earlier with another user named Yvonne, so we're going to log in as Yvonne instead, hopefully. All right. So go with me on this and pretend we're logged in as Al, but instead I'm logged in as Yvonne, and we did the same exact thing. So what happens is now the first time that Al opens this remote database, Act is going to prompt him and say, would you like to synchronize to the main database? Now the reason for this is Act doesn't know how much time has passed since I created that remote database for Al and when he actually unpacked it on his computer. It could be days, it could be weeks. It just depends on how quick or how slow Al was to do this. So what Act is going to do is it's going to ask him, do you want to synchronize? And it'll just be, I'll show you what the screen looks like. It'll look like this. If he says yes, it will launch the synchronization window, and it'll go through each of these 5 steps to make sure that his data is up to date. Now, the initial synchronization takes a little bit longer than this one I did right now, because what it needs to do is it needs to look up every record and the timestamp for each of those records. If the timestamp on Al's computer is different from the timestamp on the main database, then that tells Act, oh, we need to do a synchronization, and we need to either update the main database with the latest version or latest record, or we need to update Al's laptop with the latest record. So that initial synchronization can take a few minutes. After that, subsequent synchronizations are usually a lot quicker. So now we're up and running. We have a remote database on our employee's computer, which they can synchronize at any time. So just to test this out, I'm going to look up one of the records here. Let's look up all contacts here on this database. Now again, since this is a synchronized database, in the sync set here, I only included records that belonged to this user, in this case, Yvonne. If I were to go to my customized columns window here and find my record manager field and move it over so that it's displayed, what we'll see is that the record manager is largely Yvonne. The only time that the record manager isn't Yvonne is for other users at my company. So that's why these are all different. Al is one of my employees. Jody is one of my employees. But for all the regular contacts that I have, customers, prospects, this is only going to show records that Yvonne owns because this is her remote database. And the same thing would be true for Al. If I were able to log in, we would see that these are all Al's records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create an activity. Let's just pick one person here. Let's use Kim Jones, and I'm going to create an activity with Kim for tomorrow afternoon, I guess. let's just create a simple call activity. So I'll click call, and we're going to schedule a call with Kim for Thursday afternoon. That's on the 27th at 1 p.m. And we'll just call it a phone call to update order, whatever it might be. Doesn't really matter what we put here. What we want to make sure that happens is when I synchronize back to the main database, that data is preserved. So I'm going to click OK, and we see that this activity is now in the remote database. So what Yvonne or Al would need to do is synchronize back to the main database to make sure that all of the new records, all of the edited records get pushed back to the main database. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You can go to your Tools menu and find the Synchronize Database submenu and then choose Synchronize Now. Or what you can do in Act Desktop is if you right-click in this menu at the top, you can choose to customize your layout. And this is one thing I like to do because it helps remind me when I need to do synchronizations. I'm going to put a big, obnoxious button at the top of the screen so that it will remind me to synchronize often. When I choose Customize, my view changes a little bit. Now what I'm doing is I'm customizing my layout in Act Desktop. I'm going to go to my Commands tab here, and I'll scroll down to locate my Tools menu. And in the Tools menu, here's my Synchronize Now button. I'm just going to click that and drag it up to this little working area. And now you can see I have a big Synchronize Now button. If I close this window, this will now be working for me. All I have to do is click this Synchronize Now button, and it initiates that synchronization process. So a little quicker. I don't have to go find this in the Tools menu and fumble around for the submenu or any of that. It's right here at the top for me, which I can just easily click and move on with my life. So this synchronization is finished. It's complete. There's always a sync log at the bottom. If you click that, it'll tell you all the stuff that it did. If you like to look at sync logs, if you have errors in here, you can find out what those errors are and then figure out how to resolve those. But it will tell you if there's any errors. But this one works successfully. So what I'll do now is close this remote database. And I'm going to open up my main database to make sure that this activity was indeed synchronized back to the main database. So log in there again. And I'm just logging in as the admin here so that I can make sure I see all the records. And once I do that, I will have proven that this synchronization is working and that my remote employees are now equipped to be able to synchronize their tasks back or anything back to the main database. So I'm going to go into my task list area here, and here it is. That's the phone call that was created by Yvonne and synchronized back to the main database, phone call to update order with Kim Jones. So synchronization is working here in my desktop environment. Okay, let's see. What do we got to talk about next here? I promised the cloud users that I would show them how they can also synchronize. So one thing we found when people move from desktop to cloud is they're familiar with the desktop. They want to keep using that desktop environment, but they love the convenience of having a cloud environment where that now they don't have to maintain their databases or backups or anything like that any longer. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So I'm going to show you how to set up synchronization on cloud if you have a remote user who, for whatever reason, can't always connect to the cloud database or can't always have an internet connection. So this is a paradigm that also works for you as well. Let me go into my cloud environment now. So here I am in Act Premium Cloud. I'm logged in as an administrator here in the system. And what we'll do, it's going to be fairly similar. We'll go to our Tools menu again, but this time there is an option called Remote Database Synchronization. So this is where it's a little bit different from the desktop environment. There's no database synchronization menu. We're going to choose Remote Database Synchronization. Now this will open up a little window where we have two steps. So The difference here is I don't need to enable synchronization on the main database because the database is in the cloud. It's already ready to be synced to you. All I need to do is the last two steps, create a sync set and then create the remote database for my user to log in. So when you create the sync set, the process is fairly similar. You can see I've already created a whole ton of sync sets in here. I've done this a lot of times, but you'll probably walk through here again and you'll create a new sync set. We'll give it a name. Let's say we wanted to set up synchronization for Al again. We'll just call it Al sync set, and I'll just put cloud in here in case I've already created one for him before. I don't want to use the same name. You can give it a description if you want to. This next button won't be enabled until you actually click in this box. Then when you click next, you go through the list again to determine what sorts of records you want to synchronize or who you want to be able to synchronize. So again, I'm going to choose Al. He's going to be the person who's syncing in. And I'm going to, again, choose Define Sync Set Criteria. And then on the next screen, I'm going to create rules, again, just like I did before. So I'll choose to synchronize all records where the record manager is equal to, and then here we'll put in Al. I think I can just put in his name. We'll add to list. And that's the beauty of this preview. You can click preview, and it'll show you those records. So if you misspell his name, you can always preview it and then fix it later on. So here's 43 records that Al will be synchronizing. I'll click OK. And now that sync set has been created. So the next step from here, again, is to create a remote database. We'd want to give this remote database a name. Again, it has to be a unique name that you haven't used before. I'll just call it Al Remote DB. And then from here, I will choose the sync set that I created. So it's called Al Sync Set Cloud. And I'll click Next. And again, we'll see these same steps that we saw on the desktop. Do you want to synchronize supplemental files? Do you want to synchronize attachments? And how many days should we allow to pass before we sort of tell Al he needs to do a synchronization? When you click Next, it will give you a summary of all the things you've chosen. And then now once I click Next, it will create that remote database. So I'm not going to walk through all those steps again. A lot of that is repetitive. But at this point, it will do the same thing that we did in the desktop. It's going to create an RDB file that you'll want to download. It'll show up in your browser's download area, whatever folder you have set as the default download folder for your browser, whether you're in Chrome or Edge or whatever. You'll need to download that RDB file, give it to Al so that he can put it on his computer. Again, he must have ACT installed on his computer. And if he does, he can just double click that RDB file to launch ACT Desktop, which would then synchronize to your cloud database. So from this point on, the steps are exactly the same between the cloud environment and the desktop environment. You could still put that Synchronize Now button on Al's desktop. The only difference is now he's synchronizing to the cloud versus synchronizing to your database, which you have installed somewhere on a server in your office. So I want to talk about best practices now for syncing. And specifically, the pros and cons for synchronizing between a remote database and your main database at your company. One of the cons, let's start with the cons. One of the cons, one of the dangers that you need to be on the alert for is security of your data in case of an employee termination, right? So let's say that Al became disgruntled and he left in an anger and a fit of anger. What I need to make sure I do is I need to disable synchronization for Al. I need to make sure that he can no longer synchronize back into my database because, you know, God forbid he does something irrational and destroys some of my data. So I want to make sure I remove his access to that. It's just something to think of as part of the termination process, as part of the employee leaving the company process. You need to make sure you remember to turn off synchronization for that employee, or basically just remove their access to ACT completely. Another danger is the potential um, for users keeping their clients solely on their remote machines and never syncing back to your database. So you have to make sure that your employees are syncing, and you can run a report. You can always see when your users are syncing, and if they're not, then you can follow up with them and say, hey, we need to make sure that you're synchronizing all of your records back to our main database. Another con for using, another thing to look out for, a challenge that you have to keep track of, is you need to make sure that every employee who is synchronizing, who is using Act Desktop as a remote synchronization portal, essentially, you have to upgrade Act on all laptops if the schema changes for the Act database. So if we roll out an update to Act, whether it's Act Desktop or Act Premium Cloud, you'll have to make sure that uh, the database schema, the way the database is set up, uh, has to match the way the database is set up on the main database. So that means a little extra step of IT maintenance, basically, making sure that you're using the latest version of Act and that it is identical to the version of Act that's being used by the main database. We usually send out all kinds of emails to say we've changed this, we've upgraded Act, and we remind you that you need to um, update your Act to the latest version. Um, some of the pros of using synchronization. Um, if you're in an environment where you're working offline and you just can't, for whatever reason, not where you can't be constantly connected all the time to the internet, then synchronization works great in this example. Um, maybe you have employees that are frequently on the road. They're in places where internet isn't great. Synchronization works for them. Um, if you have a slow connection to your database out on the road, sometimes it's easier to just synchronize, make all your changes, and then run one sync at the end of the day to move all that data back to your main database. Um, Also, if you're using multi-regional databases with multiple networks, that can reduce performance. So in those instances, maybe synchronizing is a good idea. Let's talk about synchronization frequency. I've mentioned it before that you may want to remind them uh, if a few days pass and they haven't synchronized. We really recommend once a day to do a sync, maybe twice a day at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. Um, it, Keep in mind that every time you run a sync, every time you initiate that synchronize now button, it's going to use resources. It's going to use resources on your computer. It's going to use resources on your database. Um, and it's going to increase the chances that you're causing data collision, especially if you've set it up where multiple users have access to the same records. This is one of the reasons why I think it's important to use a sync set so that Al is only synchronizing Al's records. He's not synchronizing all records. Um, but I would say once a day, twice a day is probably the most I would recommend. And then maybe even do synchronization during off hours. Um, if you're a 24 hours, if you're a 24/7 type business, find the slowest time of day to do your synchronization. And I would even say try not to perform your synchronizations at the top of the hour. And I'm going to show you a tool in just a little bit called the Act Scheduler, where you can actually schedule synchronizations to happen automatically so that your users don't have to remember to do it. Um, what else do we want to talk about? The host database machine. Um, you want to keep your main database on a server that's always running. If you're running your main database on the boss's computer and the boss shuts down their computer at the end of every day, that's not ideal because you can't synchronize to a database if the machine is turned off. So use a machine, whether it's a server or probably a server is the best option anyway. Um, but make sure that thing is always turned on. Now, it doesn't have to have Act launched on it all the time, but it does need to have the sync service running, and it won't be running if that machine is powered off. So make sure that it's on a machine that's always running. And then organizing your data. You can archive old records so that you're preventing having to always sync old data. Um, I've got customers who have data from 10, 20 years ago. Maybe you don't need to synchronize all those old calendar entries. You can go into your Act menus and remove old data. Just remove that stuff. Do a backup, remove old data so that your synchronizations run a lot smoother and quicker. Um, Migrate inactive or former employees' records to other users in your database. So you have employees who have left. Don't forget to migrate those records, those kind of dead records, to other users so that uh, those records will still get synchronized. Um, and really, those are all the tips I want to give you um, for best practices in synchronization. Now, I mentioned doing an automatic sync with Sync Scheduler with the Act Scheduler here. I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is on Act Desktop. What you'll want to do is go to your Tools menu, and inside your Tools menu, you will see an option for Act Scheduler. Now, this is installed on your computer when you install Act. You don't have to do an additional install. When you click this, it's going to launch the Act Scheduler. I believe you can also find it if you go into your search area and you type in Act. You should find Act Scheduler. Either way you get there will work. It'll launch this, and it will also appear in your taskbar. If you see that it didn't show up, you can always go to your taskbar and right-click and choose Open Act Scheduler. It's this little gold clock-looking symbol. So let's look at Act Scheduler here. This is where you can create a schedule for several things. Uh, you can schedule a database backup to take place at certain times of the day. You can also create a task to do a remote database synchronization. So you'll click Create a Task. You'll want to find the file, the database that you want to sync with. So we'll browse to that database. Let's see, we're going to do, I think, this one. We'll log in. I'm just going to use Yvonne. And then it'll ask you to select a task. So you can choose to either do a backup or database maintenance, or it'll also show you remote if I had set that up correctly. Maybe I chose the wrong database. Let me go back here. Maybe I need to choose the Yvonne remote database. Maybe that's what I did incorrectly here. There we go. Yeah, so you got to choose the remote database. And then once you've logged into that remote database, it will say, it'll give you this option for database synchronization, remote database only. Okay, so you're going to choose that, click Next, and now you just have to set the schedule. How often do you want this synchronization to happen automatically? Hourly, daily, weekly, monthly? If you do hourly, just be warned that, again, you're going to use some resources every time you're running a sync. So maybe set it up to do every 12 hours. That means twice a day, right? So I would start it at maybe I would pick some off times for it. So let's start it at maybe 3 in the morning. But then I wouldn't even do it on the like top of the hour. Just pick a random number in case you have several employees who are going to be setting up the sync schedule. Set them all up at different times so you're not syncing to the main database all at the same time. So I'll set it up at maybe 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. or whatever times you want it to do. But I have it set to happen at odd times of the day. And then we'll choose the start date. We'll click Next. And if you want to have a notification that the sync is successful, put your email in here, and it'll send you an email to say we've successfully synchronized your database. Now, when you click Finish, this task is now ready to go, and it will happen at whatever frequency you chose. If you click it to highlight it, it'll tell you in the details area that this is a sync that's going to happen at 3:07 a.m. and I guess between 3:07 a.m. and 5 p.m. So that means every 6 hours it'll happen at 3:07 a.m. and 3:07 p.m. And it's good to go. You don't have to do anything else. You can just leave this running in the background, and those syncs will take place without you having to do anything. So I believe that concludes everything that we want to talk about with sync today. What I want to do right now is turn it back over to Joe to give you some final thoughts for this webinar. Take it away, Joe.
Excellent. Thanks, Brent. Great stuff. So one additional thing I want to give you all some exposure to is our new mobile app, which has been in market for about 6 months now and works on both Android and Apple devices. This product is available only to customers using the cloud version of Act and is one of several features that is exclusive to that platform. This product was built from the ground up using the latest design and usability standards and was really purpose built for mobile use cases. So it means it's got just what you need, where you need it. So you can be really productive when you're on the go. It's very slick. We're getting great feedback on it across the board. You can access and edit contacts, calendars, opportunities, activity, notes, history, all the usual suspects very quickly, and also make calls, send texts or emails with one simple click. There's also some cool features like proximity search that locates customers or prospects in a geographic boundary on a map and lets you drill right into their records in a click. So if you're an Act Premium Cloud customer and you haven't downloaded the app yet, it's super easy. You can scan the QR code here on the slide or just visit our website for more info. All right, let's move along. So lastly, and as we mentioned at the beginning, we sincerely appreciate you guys being with us each month on these webinars. We have a webpage at act.com/explore where you can sign up for upcoming webcasts and also view recordings of ones you may have missed from months prior. As Brent mentioned, I believe there's about 30 of them there now. There's a ton of great content ranging from product how-to guidance, best practices for sales, marketing, guidance on reporting and analytics, you name it. So with the recordings, you can watch them at your own pace when it's convenient for you. You can also email us at team@act.com if you have suggestions or ideas for future webcasts, and we do love getting that feedback from you all. So that's it for today. Thanks, everyone. Take care. We are going to stay on the webinar a bit longer to address any questions you may have remaining in the Q&A panel. But have a great day.